Hi, Janice.
Hello, Anthony.
Are you ready to talk about five legal myths about wills you got from the movies?
Oh, absolutely. This sounds fun.
So, you don't watch that many movies, do you?
Not so much. Admittedly, I am not very well versed in movies, and the ones I do like, I've seen probably 3,000 times. So, probably need to expand my movie watching.
So, from this article, which is on my website, anthonyspark.com, in the blog section, how many of these movies have you seen personally?
Okay, so one, maybe one, and maybe that one a lot of times, but I'll work on that.
That's all right. So, I'll jump in and carry most of those parts of the conversations. And this might actually be like a recommendation list for you for maybe some movies you might want to try.
See, now I would be excited after reading it to go like, wow, they talk about this in there. So,
Cool. So, why don't you get us started on these five legal myths?
okay, so when it comes to the movies and TV and popular media, this may come as a surprise, but law isn't exactly accurate. I know, shocking, right? So they're for entertainment. They're no way to. They're not obligated to tell you how it really goes when somebody passes away or they have a will. They're being creative, is what it boils down to. So you mentioned in the article, number one, the reading of the will, where they sit down, everyone comes into the room, they read the will, and you've got people that are shocked and surprised and saddened. And, it's this big surprise. Here's what's in the will.
Yeah,
The will now.
Janice, as you know, this just doesn't happen.
No.
Maybe it did a generation ago or many years ago, but you know the will and paperwork is circulated in a very undramatic way by FedEx or even email sometimes.
Right.
So yeah, we get these calls all the time, like, oh, my sister has begun the probate process, and she never even invited me to the reading of the will, and we have to sort of explain that doesn't happen.
Well, but it happened in the movies.
Yeah.
I saw it, I swear.
So you can't blame folks because this is what they're, some folks get their, exposure to other parts of, the world or legal process through what they see, right? So
Absolutely. You know what? It makes for good drama. So if you wanted some drama, you want to sit down at the reading of the will and say, because you think about it, some of them are like, oh, I'm cut out of the will. I mean, it is this big drama.
the closest thing to a reading of the will is in New York and in most states, there's a hearing date where anyone who's been cut out or has been disadvantaged by the will, let's say, the wayward son who never called got cut out or something, or had a reduced amount or something, they have a court hearing date where they have an opportunity to object or forever hold your peace, if I can use a thing from the movies.
Yeah, forever.
So that might be the
Speak
closest
now.
thing. Yeah, but there's no thing where the
Okay.
family is sitting around a conference table in a leather-bound library, and a lawyer, a gray-haired lawyer with glasses, is reading the will. That I've never seen in my years doing this.
Not in real life, no. So how about number two, oral wills? So it's another myth that you see in the movies and buried. Ryan Reynolds' character finds himself buried alive and dictates an oral last will and testament into his cell phone.
So
So,
so okay, this is I'm a little bit on both sides of this because yes,
Okay.
technically under New York law and I'm sure many other states, oral wills or even handwritten wills are not allowed unless they meet certain circumstances, which are kind of funny because they're from the olden days. So like an oral or handwritten will would only be allowed in a foxhole, like if you were like a World War One, in a trench kind of situation. Yeah.
okay.
So not really that applicable these days. Another example is if you were in a maritime distress situation. So basically, if you're, castaway guy.
Okay.
Right?
Like on the Titanic and you start
Yeah.
belting out your last wishes.
So these are really, really, really niche examples.
That's pretty specific, yes.
But on the flip side, I think in Michigan, there was a recent case where a young man wanted to cut out his mother. I think I might be getting those facts wrong. But the point is, he texted something saying that this is an amendment to my will. I don't remember if he texted it to himself or he texted it to his attorney. And that was upheld by the courts. So,
Interesting.
so things change. And, this is all in flux. But yes, generally, shouting out or even handwriting your will is no good as of now. At least.
It's not preferred. No, it doesn't work. So you talked about number three, you can steal inheritances. So the references in Superman Returns, 2006, Lex Luthor secures a sizable fortune by convincing an elderly widow to sign over her entire estate, literally on her deathbed.
So you didn't see this one, did you?
Not so much.
Okay. This is like
I know who Superman is.
This scene was fantastically overdramatic. It's
Was
great.
it?
So Lex Luthor was played by Gene Hackman, and he's in this darkened room with this very frail elderly lady, and there's lightning and a thunderstorm outside. It's just totally over the top
Always
dramatic.
a thunderstorm.
And yeah, he's pretty much guiding her hand to sign the will. Like, there's no witnesses in the room. There's no attorney. Yeah, so this wouldn't happen. Most states have protections and procedures that must be followed in order for a will to be valid. And good old Lex didn't follow any of those procedures.
He didn't have his 2 adult witnesses and notary.
Exactly.
Oh, see, if he would have done that.
And the funny thing is, this is actually why these same protections and procedural safeguards are actually why you kind of want to go to an attorney when you get a will done. Because if you download a will or do the do-it-yourself software, even if it somehow matches your needs, which, for other reasons is often not the case, the execution process and making sure you follow all the right steps to make sure it's signed in the proper way, to make sure it's a valid will, it's pretty hard in this day and age to get that done through a computer or a DIY type situation.
Absolutely. And I can tell you for PA, it changes the different specifications on how you have to sign it. It does change. So it's not something that if you knew 5 years ago what to do, it's going to be different now.
Good point.
It's again, I think we talk about this all the time. See a professional when you are doing your estate planning documents. So number 4,
work, at least.
Right. Yeah. So number 4, okay, this one I've seen many times, actually. So you have to pay taxes if you inherit anything. It's the myth. So in Shawshank Redemption, one of my favorite movies of all time, they're up there on top, and they're have you seen it? They're up there. They're tarring the roof, and they're not supposed to talk to the prison guards. It's very important that they don't. And Andy overhears him saying that he received an inheritance, and how can he make the money go away? And Andy used to be a CPA. So he says, excuse me, guard. It was just a whole big ordeal. It was one of my favorite scenes, saying, you could give it to your wife and it's tax-free. And okay, why that may be so, and that part wasn't necessarily accurate. The inheritance, can you talk about the taxes a little bit? We have federal taxes and then there's some state taxes, but is the recipient obligated? Do they have to personally pay taxes?
Sure. So first, before I go into the tax part, let's stay on the fun part. Funny coincidence, because we just talked about a Superman movie. The guard in this scenario that we're talking about in the Shawshank Redemption movie, he's actually the voice actor for Lex Luthor in the animated series. So connection.
So 6 degrees of separation. I kind of saw a little bit of the movie. I heard it before. Okay, that's interesting. Okay,
but back to the taxes. Yes. This movie was set in the 40s, I guess, 30s. I don't really remember.
Yeah.
But
long time.
So back then, yes, this may have been accurate. There may have been more states that had what's called an inheritance tax, versus in the present day, there are very few states that have an inheritance tax, and most death taxes are estate taxes, and I'll explain what that means. An estate tax is paid by the estate off the top before anything goes to the heirs. Right. So if dad is survived by son and daughter, and he leaves behind $100,000, and let's say for some reason there's a tax on this $100,000, that gets paid off first. Let's say it's $10,000. So now you have $90,000, and then that net amount gets paid to the kids, and they don't owe anything from that point forward. An inheritance tax works the other way, where the $100,000 gets paid to son and daughter, but son and daughter, having received inheritance, have to pay a tax on that inheritance, right? Whether it's $5,000 each or whatever the percentages are. But the point is, in this day and age, there are very few states that have an inheritance tax. I think in the past 5 years, actually, a couple of states have actually gotten rid of them. I know New Jersey did in the past few years. And most taxes, or most death taxes, are off the top, or estate taxes. So wouldn't happen for the most part in today's day and age.
For the most part, right. But still a good part of the movie.
Yeah, good. Lex Luthor, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So you talk about the final one is that inheritances can come with a catch. Now, this is a little bit different than what you had said before, because this one could actually be true. So in The Bachelor, the grandfather leaves his only grandson a sizable inheritance with a catch that before he can inherit, the grandson has to get married by a specific date. If he doesn't, he gets nothing. Mm-hmm. Did you see the movie? I guess you did, but I did not. But I would imagine if I was left that sort of inheritance with such specificness, that might be a little frustrating, but it's legal.
Well, it is legal with some limitations. You can't impose conditions that are against public policy. And I've always struggled with what this means, but I think there are some obvious examples like
crime. Is that?
That's a good example, but I guess the common one from law school, and it's a little touchy, but you can't make an inheritance conditional on, like let's say, your child marrying only a certain race or religion, right? That would be against public policy, that kind of restriction. I kind of, as we're talking about this, I regret not including another movie that I happen to love. Did you ever see Brewster's Millions?
See previous statement of the movie experience.
Okay. Anyway, for anyone listening, that's another example of that one is not necessarily against public policy. Oh, quick summary for Janice. Richard Pryor inherits from his very, very wealthy distant uncle, and he can either take $30 million now, I think. Oh, excuse me, take $3 million now and walk away. Or if in 30 days he can spend $30 million and have nothing left to his name afterwards, he'll receive $300 million.
Oh.
Right? And so he goes for it. Fun. And the whole movie is about him trying to spend the money. And, great movie. I think that's all I had. Sorry, I had to throw in the Brewster's Million.
I like that one. So what you're saying is it could maybe be, but when you set up and you're talking to your attorney about your estate planning, and you were to mention something like this as an attorney, as you are, and you've set these up, would you kind of sway someone against doing something like that?
Yeah, I generally don't like conditional gifts. Even if they are legally enforceable, the cost of enforcement and the litigation involved would really just kind of waste a lot of everybody's time and money.
Well, we talked about that in a previous podcast where a lady left her inheritance to her 3 children, and they would be able to sell the house so long as they lived within a certain mile radius. I don't know if you remember that one, but not thinking that they could move across country, which they did, and they ended up spending more on legal fees to get the house sold and to get that condition removed, and they ended up with very little. So while it may have meant well, it costs a lot of money to the estate.
I mean, that being said, I'll play devil's advocate. If there's something that's extremely important to you, then do it and put that condition on the will or on the bequest, right? But just know that it comes at a significant cost.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thanks. So this was a fun article. I am going to work on my movie watching, and I'll report back.
Very good, Janice. All right. Okay, so again, that's 5 illegal myths about wills you got from the movies. Check it out at our blog, anthonyspark.com. And we'll talk to you later. Bye, Janice.
Chat soon.